Apparently it was a popular decision. And as for you, smart guy, you're not Ric Flair.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. The BJ Show.
John, in light of what's happened in the last couple of days, I did a little homage, or is it homage? Which is it, homage or homage?
I would say homage, but
Okay.
I'm not an elitist. I think you could say it either way, Brad.
A little homage to Ric Flair, who has been in the news recently.
He has. That's a sad story, isn't it?
Did that happen this week, or was that last week?
I think it was over the weekend.
He gets into
And I think the video just came out in the last couple of days.
Yeah, in the video, if you don't know what we're talking about, he apparently is at a restaurant, was it Gainesville, Florida, or someplace?
In Gainesville, yeah, Gainesville, Florida.
And he's in a section of the restaurant. This is what I've read. Tell me if you know anything differently, John. He's in a section of the restaurant that they're trying to close off for a private party. Isn't that what the deal was? And
I'm not sure of the setup.
well, that's what I read, and that he essentially was told he's going to have to move, and he didn't take it well. So Rick goes on and starts, shall we say, jawboning the employees. And
That's one way to put it. Yeah.
right.
He cut a promo. In wrestling parlance, he cut a promo on the employee.
He cut a promo on the employees. And at one point in time, the video that's out is he's seated at the bar, and apparently there's a video camera behind the bar, and he's going at it with a barmaid and the manager and one of the bartenders, and then some guy at the end of the bar pipes up, just some customer, and says, "Hey, man," and Rick, like, puffs out his chest like, "Dude," he doesn't say this, but he puffs out his chest like, "Do you know who I am?" You know what I mean?
Yeah. And but don't you feel, I don't know how you feel about this. So I grew up idolizing Ric Flair, and I've seen his, a lot of the way he has been the last decade or so of his life. Don't you feel, Brad, that this is really sad? Like, when you see stuff like that, don't you feel saddened by that?
I do. And what's sad about it is that, first off, okay, God, there's so many different things we need to talk about this morning. And first off, let me say this. I'm going to say this right now. If you are streaming the show, please text me at 314-280-8880. This is live streaming the show. If you're live streaming the show at 314-280-8880, I need to get some confirmations that our stream is up. We've had problems with the streaming. We've had problems everywhere due to lightning strikes and power outages and all sorts of crazy crap, which I'll talk about later. But if you could just text me at 314-280-8880 and tell me everything's looking good. From our end, it looks like everything is fine. It was down last night from about 4 or 5 when one of the storms rolled through yesterday with all the crazy lightning and stuff like that. And it came back up at about 2 o'clock this morning. At least I think it's totally up. We'll just do that. Okay. What's sad about it is that I've never been, and I know that's his persona, but you don't bully the wait staff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
You don't go after the people who are there, who are, working nights and, working for tips and things like that, because their job's tough enough. Their job's tough enough. And I don't know.
And the other sad thing is, at one point in the video, he says something to a waitress or the female bartender, whoever, something like, "Hey, sweetie, add another $1,000 tip to it." So he's throwing his money around.
Yes.
And anybody who's followed Ric Flair over the last 3 decades, he wrote about it in his book. He is terrible with money. He's in significant debt. Like, he's constantly putting himself – the reason why he does these appearances, as I understand it, is because he's in dire financial straits. Rick doesn't have $1,000, unless I'm mistaken, to add to a tip. But the money will go through. Somebody will put it on their card. But you don't throw $1,000 around if you don't have it.
It's something that came out yesterday, which I thought was sort of interesting. And here we go, diving into another topic.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know that Stormy Daniels owes Donald Trump $500,000? Have you heard this bizarre story?
I didn't know that.
Yes,
No.
she
Was her full service thing $1 million and she only gave him half?
no. He
He
sued
ordered it around the world and he only got half, I guess.
No, he sued her for defamation and libel, and he won. And she's got a 5. And thinking to myself, okay, this is the prosecution's star witness. And
Yeah, so Brad, wait a minute. Are you suggesting that she's motivated by money? You got to get out of town. Let's go back to Ric Flair for 1 second, real quick, though, Brad.
No.
It reminds me of the fact that folks know that Ric Flair has had a drinking problem for a long time. He talks about doing cocaine in the 80s, which I think a lot of people did. But his drinking problem is well established. For a while, he was on the wagon. He's clearly off the wagon. And you wonder, Brad, we'll never know how many people that are close to him are, number one, either leeches just for his money. Number two, how many of them have tried to say, Rick, stop it, we got to go. How do you not have somebody by your side all the time to keep you on the straight and narrow? And third, how many people have tried to get him on a better path and he absolutely refuses, or he cuts them out of their life, or he disregards their well-intentioned help? And how many people have washed their hands of him and said, he's unsalvageable. We cannot do anything with Rick.
what's sad about that is, I don't know in your life. In my life, I have several people, not necessarily right now, but in the past, several people that I have tried to help. And some people you can help, some people can't. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But the problem is,
I agree 100%, Brad.
going into it, you don't know the good from the bad. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? If
Absolutely, yeah.
You have
and
to-
some people just, and it's a cliche, but you have to want the help.
Right. And I came out of the radio industry. I started in 1973. And let me tell you, SDR. You know what SDR is?
No, I don't know.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
That was the radio industry, just like the music industry, because the music industry and the radio industry back in the day were tightly intermingled. Not anymore by any stretch of the imagination, but back in the day, there were very, very, very tight ties between the recording industry, the live performance industry, the whole bit. And it was just crazy time. It's funny. You talked about the fact that Ric Flair had been in a lot of parties. I didn't do that kind of stuff. Matter of fact, I think I told you the crazy story that when I first got in the radio business, I was working as a police dispatcher as well too. And a lot of the radio people shunned me because they knew I worked for a police department. They thought I was like a narc.
Yeah, you were a
something.
narc.
I was a narc, and so I was like not invited to a lot of parties and stuff like that. I think maybe because I'm sort of a nerd, stuff like that. Anyway, how do we get talking about Ric Flair?
And by the way, though, part of the reason they thought you were a narc was because they confused you with Don Johnson. And they weren't sure if you were Crockett or Tubbs. You wore that light-colored sport coat, and you always wore your sandals without socks, Brad. They thought, this guy's clearly an art. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll leads nicely into our number 3 story. I don't know if Casey's down the hall or not.
I had that Armani suit, and I had the Bren 10. And you're going to go, what's a Bren 10, right?
I don't know what that is.
Well, we won't talk about it. We'll move into we'll just pass that one by. My gun buddies out there will know, oh my God, he can't believe he mentioned a Bren 10. That would be like seeing an eclipse that nobody knew about. Okay, here we go.
We're on our way to the number one in third place.
A job opening at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Brad. And it's created because a very strong progressive voice is leaving St. Louis media. Have you seen this, Brad?
It's funny. I saw this yesterday, and I thought to myself, any money, this is going to be one of John's topics tomorrow.
It absolutely is. And for anybody listening on streaming, if it's a little fuzzy, he said any money, not Eddie money, which are two very different things. But Kevin C. Johnson, the music reporter at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, is leaving, Brad. He's going to a company called Live Nation. They do a lot of concerts. He's going to be a content editor for Kevin Johnson. Now, the reason why I say that Kevin Johnson is a really important progressive voice is that, first of all, he talks about it in his Departing column, which is up on my website today. You, as always, can find a paywall-free version on my website. Kevin Johnson talks a little bit about the fact that his underlying mission, in his words, was to make sure that the story subjects, Brad, were black. You don't just want to cover, You don't just want to cover music, right? It's not enough to cover music. And in fact, he says he has a pretty powerful quote here, and that he wanted to make sure that the story subjects that he covered not just were black, but that black representation, black faces need to be seen in more than Law and Order stories. Now, we talked about Kevin Johnson previously, Brad, because remember last summer he declined to cover a Morgan Wallen concert, and his direct quote was, "As a black man, I don't feel comfortable occupying the predominantly white space." And according to Kevin Johnson, his management at the Post-Dispatch stood behind him, Brad. Why should a black man have to go to a predominantly white space to cover a concert? Now, one more thing, a more important concert that he covered last summer was Beyonce came here. I have this up on my website today, too. You can find an anthology of Kevin Johnson stories up today. Beyonce came here last summer, and Kevin Johnson called it a 2.5-hour spectacle, easily emerges as the biggest, blackest, queerest stadium tour ever. We should note that Kevin Johnson gets to check 2 diversity boxes. He's black and a homosexual.
Okay.
So I don't know if the Post is going to be able to find a triple minority to fill his spot. I'm not sure if maybe he's transitioning.
John,
if you can't go to a concert because there's too many white people, I'm guessing you don't have a set of balls. So maybe he's transitioning.
I want to make sure of one thing. I'm a little confused on that. You're telling me the Post-Dispatch had a liberal progressive employee?
Believe it or not, Brad.
Oh my God, I don't believe it. And that
yeah.
was
So anyway, I guess they'll be filming this. Can you imagine being a white woman, and let's say, God forbid, the Post-Dispatch were to hire a competent white woman to fill this role, and then suddenly you're writing stories and they're like, okay, we see that you haven't written a story about local genderqueer scene yet. And you're like, well, I don't know. We have, we have another artist coming to town that actually sells records. DIE.
Well, but the only problem with that was the only concert she would cover would be the Go-Go's and the Runaways. That would be the problem, that if they hired like a white lady who did that,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because I hope that white employee makes sure that her underlying mission is to make sure there's more white voices in these stories.
Well,
Brad.
matter of fact.
So if anybody wants to apply for a music job, the Post-Dispatch has one open. It would help if you're maybe a genderqueer or you're handicapped and you're transgender.
I don't know if you know this or not. I mean, let's fill people on. The reason that Kevin C. Johnson did not want to cover the Morgan Wallen concert, because that was during the controversial period where apparently one of his buddies recorded him dropping the N-bomb on somebody. But the interesting thing now, did you know that all the moving companies are now boycotting the Morgan Wallen concert when it comes back to St. Louis?
Yeah, because he was doing a lot of moving work. He's known for moving chairs, sofas,
right,
lounge furniture.
And they're very upset with him because that should be done by a stagehand. He should not be touching any furniture, that the stagehands should be doing this. So the stagehands, I think it's IATSE, the International Association of Theater Special Effects People, whatever IATSE stands for, they're coming after him for that. Okay, moving on.
Up a notch to number 2.
Number 2.
It's not all bad news in the Post-Dispatch, though, Brad. There's actually some good news today. Now, once in a while, there's an employee from the Post-Dispatch that will cherry pick some quotes from the Missouri House of Representatives or from the Missouri Senate. And, they like to pick ones where Republicans are out there saying something crazy. And then the headline will be, can you believe what this Republican is saying? And the Post-Dispatch did it again yesterday. But this quote's pretty good, Brad. And this is, the headline from the Post-Dispatch is, lawmaker has a message for Missouri's lazy kids. Get a job. So I think we're supposed to see this video headline, Brad, and get mad and think, oh, that's typical Republicans being out of touch. But I know somebody who's going to love it, and it's Brad Hildebrand.
I do.
Brad, the quote. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, see, once again, I mean, drive. I don't know exactly where you live. You live somewhere out in West County, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Drive up and down the main drags in West County. Drive up and down Olive or Manchester or Doherty Ferry. And if you get into some of the areas where you go, like some of the strip malls and some of the fast food places, some of the restaurants, what do you see almost on every front door or window of those establishments? What do you see?
Help wanted.
Exactly. Nobody can find anybody who wants to work anymore. And I read the headline of that
Go
story.
ahead, Brad.
I read the headline of that story, and I thought to myself, finally. But see, like you said, they're going to go like, oh, my God, I can't believe she said that. What do you mean, get a job? Why should they get a job? Well, I'm just like, okay, whatever.
And the topic and the representative is from Boone County. Her name is Representative Cherie Tolson Rice, not to be confused with Mary Poppins' Chim Chimney Chim Chim Cherie, also from the Method Man. He made that a rap too. But Cherie Tolson Rice was talking about, Brad, you would love this story, and that's why I included it today. She talks about the fact that she started working at the age of 9. And when she was 15, she wanted a car. And her parents said, or she wanted car insurance so that she could buy a car so that she could start working. Her parents said, absolutely not. We're not getting you a car. Her older brother was 17. Cherie got a job at the same place her older brother did. Her older brother drove her to work, drove her home from work. They worked the same shifts. She saved money. She bought a car. She got insurance. In her floor speech, Brad, and I think this is what people are supposed to be real mad about, according to the Post-Dispatch, she says, it seems today that a lot of kids are just good at playing video games. They sure know how to join gangs and play video games. Why aren't they working? And the subject, Brad, was a bill. There's a House bill and a Senate bill that would cut some of the red tape to allow 14 and 15-year-olds to get a part-time job. As it stands today, you have to get a certification from your school.
Right.
You not only have to have parental sign-off, but your employer has to talk about the job duties and the job conditions. And there's all this red tape. This Missouri bill, both Missouri bills say, what you need is your parents to say, yes, my child can work part-time, period. So a great example of something, I guess middle America is supposed to be mad at Cherie Tolson Rice because she tells lazy kids to get a job. But I think it's the message people should hear.
I had my first job at 13, bought my first car at 15. So anyway, so what? And once again, back in the day, I don't know how it is anymore. I could not own the car myself because I believe the state law at that point in time, you had to be 18 to own a car. You couldn't actually own it yourself. You had to have your parents sign for it.
Yeah, I believe it.
And I didn't finance it. I paid cash. It was $100. Okay, last, but hold on. Okay, here we go.
The number one.
Had to count my buttons.
Finally, a little bit of fallout from the Washington University protests. We haven't heard a whole lot from the university, about suspensions and such, but at least one student, according to the Post-Dispatch, will not receive her degree at graduation next week, Brad. Do you want to hear how harsh this punishment is? Are you ready for this?
They banned her from the on-campus Starbucks?
No, she can still go there as long as she puts money on her credit card. She has BNPL, Brad, buy now, pay later. And it's not really credit, so she can just rack up a ton of debt. She's a grad student, Brad. She's putting herself through school. No, here's her punishment. She will not receive her degree, technically. And she can still attend commencement ceremonies. She can still be there. But you know what, Brad? The only time she can come on campus is during commencement. And she has to miss the senior party at Ballpark Village, Brad. But you know what? They're not sure if they're going to actually give her her master's degree in public health, which, by the way, you can imagine her ideology. She's getting a master's in public health. So she doesn't get her degree on graduation day, Brad, but she gets to come and hang out at the ceremony. But no senior week party for young Valencia Alvarez. She already has a job lined up with some immigrant group, naturally, so she doesn't have to worry about getting a job. But I don't know. She's going to miss the Ballpark Village party, Brad.
Okay, now hold on. So in other words, she's been banned. The Cardinals have banned her from Ballpark Village? Or who's banned her from Ballpark?
No, Washington University says she can't attend the official Washington University public health senior party, which is being held at Ballpark Village.
I don't know how they can do that because of the fact that if it's at Ballpark Village, how can the Washington...
Well, maybe they have... I'm guessing they reserved a private space.
I guess that's it. Okay. John Combest, it's interesting because his initials are JC. And matter of fact, in some parts of the state, and there's a certain area of Cole County that's right by the Missouri River, there's a city that has the initials JC. And John Combest is, as a lot of people know in Jefferson City, he is Mr. JC. You want some guy who is like John Combest is today the version of what was his name was. The reporter that the gossip reporter for the Post.
Jerry Berger.
Jerry Berger, yeah. We got John Combest, JC. We got back in the day we had JB Jerry Berger. Okay, John Combest, and what's interesting is even though John Combest is so well connected with the Capitol and the goings on in the government, I am going to almost guarantee you he won't understand what I'm going to talk about next. Okay, you ready for this? I'm ready. Okay. Yesterday, I had to go to the St. Charles County Courthouse to take care of some business, okay? Mm-hmm. I walked in the front door, and if you've been to most courthouses, you're greeted by the Checkpoint Charlie, this case, the St. Charles County Sheriff's Department, who have a contingent there at the front door. You have to put all your stuff in a little plastic, thing, go through the metal detector, go through the x-ray machine, and then come out. I walk through the door, and interestingly enough, the first sheriff that's sitting there says, "How can I help you?" And I say, "I'm here to file something with the county clerk." And he says, "Sorry, can't do that." Why did he tell me that, John?
Oh, I don't know. Are we going to find out when we come back?
You want me to tell you right now?
Oh, yeah, sure. I thought we were up against break.
We are, but I'll give you the answer. Once again, I go to the St. Charles County Courthouse yesterday. The 4 sheriff's deputies that are normally manning the Checkpoint Charlie there are there, but you can't go, and the x-ray machine is turned off, and the metal detector is turned off as well, too, and you can't go into the building because yesterday was Truman's birthday, and the entire state was shut down.
Yeah, I saw people tweet about it, Brad.
Yes, and so this happened to me. Hold on a minute. Twice in 1 year, I show up on July 3rd to file some documents in the court system. Same thing happened to me. This is July 3rd last year. Now, that time, because July 3rd was a Monday and July 4th was a Tuesday, so with little fanfare, the head judge of St. Charles County decided, we're not going to open today. We're just going to shut down the court system in St. Charles County today so our employees can have a 4-day weekend. Okay? Now, here's the crazy thing. I kidded the deputies about this back on July 3rd when I was there and I couldn't go and make my filing. And I kidded the deputies. They were all very nice. I wasn't a jerk to them. I just was kidding around with the whole bit. Why is it that they closed the court system, but yet the county is paying for 4 deputies to run Checkpoint Charlie when nobody can get in the building? Wouldn't you think it would make sense that they just put a sign on the door and lock the door and say, "Sorry, building closed today because of Truman's birthday holiday"? But no, your tax dollars, if you're in St. Charles County, and I pay tax dollars in St. Charles County, my tax dollars are paying 4 deputies, and I'm not against them. They're making their money. But 4 deputies to sit there to do nothing once again. And I even said to the one guy, I told him, I was here in July 3rd. Oh, yeah, it was the same thing. We had people complain about that. I go, why can't the court department, or in this case, the state, call the county sheriff's department and say, "Hey guys, just a reminder, Wednesday's a holiday and the court system's going to be shut down, so you guys can just put a note on the door and lock the door." No, but instead we're paying for 4 deputies to sit there to do nothing.
Well, I hope that the local government employees union is representing them and that they need to. It's like in The Sopranos. You want to have a no-show job. There's a no-show job, but then there's a no-work job. So maybe these guys actually have the no-work job.
No.
Where they just go and they hang out and they
nothing against them, because they agreed with me. They're like, it doesn't make much sense, because all day long people were coming. Like I was there late yesterday, like 4:45. All day long people were showing up and they had to say, "Sorry, you can't get in the building today. Court's closed." And to the point where you stick a sign on the door, "Sorry, door's locked. Today's Truman's holiday. Come back tomorrow." But instead, no, we got to have the 4 deputies. And once again, for them, I say, hey, once again, you guys are working. I appreciate the fact that you protect us out there, but yet it doesn't make any sense.
You need to record this. You need to take this clip from our show, Brad, pull it off of YouTube, and you need to play it at the next St. Charles County public comment period and just stand there and play the audio.
Yeah, right. And
Steve Ellman will like it. He'll reference it when it's time for him to make his remarks. He'll say, I commend citizens like Brad Hildebrand, and everybody should get at least one BJ Show clip a day. Then we can take that clip and edit out the part where he says clip and just have Steve Ellman saying everybody gets a BJ a day.
Last month when I was at the first St. Charles County Council meeting, he did compliment me, so I have that going for me. Okay, I have a compliment from Steve. And by the way, I don't know, people may roll their eyes, but I think Steve does a great job. I really do. And it's going to be sad to see him go. Although I shouldn't say that because who's running for his chair, don't you? His seat.
Joe Brazel.
And is Joe running for it?
No, I just made that up.
Oh, Mike Elam's running for it.
Oh, nice.
And I believe also Nick Guccione, who's the mayor of Wentzville, is running as well too. Anyway, we have to take a break. We're way over time.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?